dignitaries on the dais, Brigadier R.K. Singh, MD Handlooms and Handicraft, MSME, Government of India. I was hoping that the Director IIT would be here, but he had to leave, and so I'm acknowledging him as well, Professor Parmeshwar Iyer, Director IIT, acknowledging Deputy Director, Professor Kakati, who has stepped in, Deepak Kumarji, Regional Director, NSS in the Northeast, for the Northeast States of India, Dr. Manamendra Sharma, who is the Program Coordinator for NSS IIT Guwahati, all the program officers who are present from the various states, and my colleagues, Purvi from UNICEF. This is indeed an important moment for us because enrolling young people in the area of climate change is very close to UNICEF, very close to our heart. And climate change and its impact on the environment, I'm sorry, this mic is coming, are a reality which we are all witnessing today. It is not something that we are imagining, but it is something that we are experiencing. And there was a point when I was growing up, and I was in medical school, where these things were sort of imagined, they were forecasted. But this is the time when these things are happening now. And we are living with really the consequences of a lot of the climate change that is happening, be it in the context of diseases, in the context of resource scarcities, as well as in accessibility to services. And this is just a small, I would say a small window, a small perspective, a small portion of what we actually see as what is happening as a climate change consequences on our planet. And we know that if we do not act today, one of the direct impacts of it would be chronic water scarcity. And this is really the context of our discussion, Swachhta and Mission Life today. And this scarcity will be experienced by about 3 billion people across the world. So that is the global deprivation that this whole climate change piece will cause. When we come to the context of India, India is the 13th most at-risk country of experiencing extreme water stress. And this is one out of 189, almost 189 countries, according to a recent Lancet publication. And this will contribute to about, when India experiences this, I would say it's already happening, this climate crisis on water, it will affect about 701 million people. So it's not a small number that we are speaking about. And when we speak about people, I think as UNICEF, our focus really comes back to young people, to children, to women, and the consequences it has to the burden that they already have, be it in collecting water, be it in diarrheal diseases, be it in any other diseases, and the economics of that. The government of India has been very cognizant of this need for climate change. So it's not something that the government of India, the government of India has been looking into this. We've been working very closely with them, and they have introduced a lot of policy reforms and economic incentives for this to address this whole piece on climate change. And this includes also a lot of green initiatives, like the use of solar energy. And recently our office, the UNICEF office in Beltola, has been looking at also green energy and looking at how we can look at solar energy panels for our own office so that we could reduce the carbon footprint of our office, looking at reduction of, I would even say printers, reducing prints, actually introduce digital signatures. So looking at how, as an office, as living that and walking that climate sensitive greening culture, we can actually contribute to the environment. And I think that the reality of the whole action that we can take up for ourselves at an individual level, at an institutional level, and at a community level, I think that is really the truth and the way to actually implement, to bring this reality to us, so that whatever we do, whatever actions we take, beyond the knowledge that we have, will actually impact, or I would say rather reduce the impact on the generations to come. And this is where the concept of the lifestyle for the environment comes in. And this was introduced by our Honorable Prime Minister during the COP26 in 2021. And he called upon institutions and individuals to drive life as a mass movement, to make it something like, a social behavior change movement where actually it would have policy and action linked with it, to become more mindful of the utilization and consumption of our scarce and non-renewable resources. Youth and young people then are at the core of the government's agenda, and that's why the NSS is, called into action. And it is also because the government realizes that the potential of this change can be driven by young people, for young people, and make that very significant change for our country. I was recently speaking to one of our NSS officers here from Assam University, and we were talking about also the work that we did during the floods, where the floods in Assam last year impacted about 8.8 million people in Assam. And we saw over 4,000 relief camps that were built, camps that came up, shelters that came up, and in the shelters we also worked very closely with the government to set up child-friendly spaces. And the biggest problem that we faced at that time, the communities faced, and we tried to work with them, was the access to potable water and sanitation. That became the biggest challenge at the time of the floods which was seen in Kachar. It was unprecedented, there was limited preparedness, and limited preparedness even from the side of the stakeholders beyond the communities of how we could support them. And at this time, the NSS volunteers, especially in Kachar, supported the district administration in relief and response. And that was something I would say a very courageous response, because I was speaking to their officer, and there were issues where they actually went beyond the call of duty, beyond actually looking after their own safety, which I feel should not have been so. But yes, actually stepped beyond that call to work with communities, and also looking at how we could move this into I would say, a continuing knowledge agenda with the NSS, as connecting with them and working with them continuously. The other area where we worked very closely with NSS is the engagement of NSS volunteers on the issue of corporal punishment and cyberbullying in 2022. And this was where the collective energy of about 35,000 volunteers who had an opinion on, who had experienced, I would not say an opinion, but they had experienced also corporal punishment and cyberbullying, and they wanted to do something about it. And when the regional director of NSS and UNICEF decided to support the volunteers with more information on these two issues, the volunteers were actually able to articulate a lot of this and also convert their work into something what we call the U report, which was also shared at the highest office of the governor of Assam. And at that point, along with the governor's office, along with the Department of Youth and Sports, they've actually looked at solutions that could work for them and also work with their universities and their communities. I think this whole motivation of converting the intent of doing good and looking after their communities really is a need of the hour, because there is a lot of knowledge, but we need people to go into action, and as knowledge partners, as technical teams, we need people on the ground who will take some of this work forward. As UNICEF, I think we've been discussing, and we are really happy to support the NSS in providing resources on climate change and work with the Directorate and POs on integrating this issue in the annual calendar of NSS so that it becomes something that can be discussed, something that can be worked on, something that can be translated into action, especially in the areas. I know that every college has an area where they work and implement, and this could definitely be actioned. The other thing that we have learned is that we must start small. We must start in a very focused, action-oriented way, so that we are not just talking, but actually walking the talk. And when we talk about life, it speaks about the 21-day challenge to make one simple, environment-friendly action plan per day for 21 days. And that one action is something that we are then looking forward with NSS volunteers and program officers who are present here to look at that one action that we can take forward for our future generations to live in a significant way. The other area that I feel, and that I've been discussing with Purvi and Deepakji, to work closely with NSS is in the documentation of evidence and monitoring of preparedness, especially in the context of floods, and linking that with also departments and the action that government departments take in the context of floods. When we work with different CSO partners, we work very closely in Dhimaji and Majuli with the Rural Volunteer Center. And when we have experiences there, because they have, I would say, perennial floods, they are always every 6 months having floods, there they have actually, I would use the word, piloted, learned about flood resilient toilets. And we would be very happy to hear a third party, a fresh eyes kind of view of the results of some of these pilot initiatives from NSS teams to understand how these, I would say, concepts, these new ideas, these innovations, these game-changing, innovations work in the field. Do they need more change? Do they need more tweaking? Do they need to be worked in a different way? And I think this is something that UNICEF is very keenly listening to NSS, listening to young people, to know what works for them and their communities. The usefulness of many of these solutions, I think that is something that we are really looking forward to hearing from the teams on the ground, and also looking, just sharing for the people, for the program officers who come from other states, that we have also worked with the disaster risk reduction roadmap in 2 other states. Sikkim had initiated one, Tripura has already made one, Nagaland has made a DRR roadmap, and we are very happy then to work also with NSS in the Northeast, in your states, to see how some of the actions of these DRR roadmaps, which are now approved by your cabinet of your states, and see what portion of that, what component of that, what implementation component of that we can pick up, so that we can also test what works in these states. Because what works in Assam may not work, may not work in Tripura because of the different context, because of the different kind of floods, the different kind of disaster. Also for Nagaland, it's a different state. And so we want to have customized, specific solutions. I will not speak too long. I would want to close just by reiterating that UNICEF is committed to work very closely with the NSS. We are committed to work very closely with young people, and we look forward to hearing more from you, hearing more about your experiences, what works for you, and I would say please reach out to us where you have ideas, where you have innovative ideas through the NSS Regional Director's Office. Reach out to us so that we can work closely with you. Thank you very much.